Okay, welcome to this presentation where we are going to talk about application of GSIM at Statistics Sweden. And my name is Patrik Wahlgren, and I work as a business architect here at Statistics Sweden. I hope you like to watch boxes in PowerPoint because there will be plenty of boxes in this presentation. We will start with an introduction to Statistics Sweden's enterprise architecture and with a focus on capabilities. And then we will talk about what role GSIM plays in this architecture. And at the end, we will talk about process, step, and task. I also work as a business architect in a project where we are modernizing our national account system. And I sometimes will refer to that project, but in that project we are fully focused on GSIM. GSIM is the solution for our national accounts all the way. So sometimes I will refer what we are doing in that project during this presentation. I will not go into any details, but of course there are many details that are interesting to discuss, but we will touch upon, I think, all of the parts of GSIM, the business structures and the concept. I will just mention concept very briefly because I think you have previous presentations has gone into detail into that one. Before we get into the GSIM objects, we need to talk about capabilities. Unfortunately, we haven't fully translated our capability map, so therefore I show it like this. You could say that in order to produce a value, all organizations have capabilities. And we have chosen to illustrate our Statistics Sweden's capabilities in a map like this. And at the top we have capabilities that involves managing and leading and develop Statistics Sweden. And at the bottom we have capabilities for supporting Statistics Sweden. And for example, there you can have like human resources or finance or capabilities for handling invoices and payments and stuff like that. But in the middle we have our core, which is the statistics production, and it's inside this area we use, for example, GSIM or GSBPM and all the other standards that helps us structure the statistics production. Here is some examples of capabilities involved in the statistics production, and there are many more. You can see many of them are one-to-one to GSBPM process steps, and yeah, there are a lot more than you see here, but this is just some of them. Okay, now it's time to take a look on a capability, what it's made of and how it works. A capability takes input from maybe another capability or outside, takes some kind of information, and it delivers some kind of value. It has added some kind of value. And to do that, capability uses processes, organization. There are people working inside capabilities. We have IT services helping us to create the value, and We also have a capability is also responsible for information, and that's where, of course, GSIM comes in. And capability has responsible is the master source of information. We don't want information duplicated into more than one capability. So it's important that there is a clear responsibility for ownership of information. In our enterprise architecture, we document the processes in process maps and organization in organization schemas, and IT services. We have documentation on, like integration points and other software documentation. And information is our information models, but they are based on GSIM in our case. And you can say that the typical output way to deliver a value is like typically there is an IT system here, and that exposes an API to other capabilities. You can also worth mentioning that there are no rules on that we must have, for example, just one IT system inside a capability. Many times the capability is built of many IT services. Some of them we develop ourselves, but there could also be IT services that we purchase from third parties. Hopefully that we can also plug in IT services that are developed in the sharing tools initiative. So the next slide we will take a look on how capabilities are collaborating. We usually have different kind of layouts when we are presenting these kind of maps, and one of the ways we line them up is typically in the GSPPM processes, but in this presentation we will try a little bit different layout. One thing that is really important is when a capability is communicating or delivering its value to the next capability, that the delivering capability is doing it in a really nice and clean way. So the handover between capabilities are really nice and easy to do. And one thing that helps us there is, of course, GSIM. You could say in a way that GSIM is the language which we talk between the capabilities. So it's really important with the nice handovers between the capabilities. Okay, here is a layout which we can use to illustrate how the capabilities are collaborating. At the top you can see the fundamentals, the core, you could say maybe, capabilities. Then you have capabilities for design, content, and workflow, and also the process design capabilities, and all the capabilities that are executing the design. And at the bottom you have the results, handling the results. And many capabilities are not shown in this diagram. And we have capabilities for frame design and frame and selection. So there are many capabilities not shown here. Our latest capability that we have added is in the execution part, and that's web scraping. So what we're going to do now is take a look at the value streams through these capabilities you see here. So here, what we do here, for example, is that we are taking metadata and combine it with a statistical program. So we can design a statistical program content, and the content is then that is typically data structures, and we have data structures that we use in design collection, design process, and design analysis, and design dissemination. And then we have combined the data structures down, and we send it down to the execution capabilities, the ones doing the job. For example, reading files. For example, we need information, the data structures on what we are going to produce. How will the datasets look like when we are importing files, for example? And when the datasets are created, they are stored in this managed datasets capability. And since we are always using the same metadata that comes from our capability up in the left corner, it is easy to all the capabilities understand the content because it's from the same source, so we can communicate datasets between the different executing capabilities. And this is very, very powerful. We don't need any exports and mapping and load and stuff like that. All the dataset speaks the same language, and that's GSIM. And in a similar way, we combine business functions for a statistical program. So we combine and we create a workflow, and then for each process step, or no, GSPPM process, we go down and continue the design in design for design collection, design process, or design analysis, or design dissemination. So for example, we design in design collection contracts, provision agreements, and in design process, for example, right now in the national accounts, we are designing VTL code, and that's a couple of examples. And then, of course, in order to be able to execute, we need also being executing in a context which we provide with this in these steps. And now we're gonna take a look inside these capabilities and what we will find regarding GSIM information. So we start with this one, manage statistical programs. I guess it's one of the easiest one to see what it handles. It handles the statistical program object and the statistical program cycle objects. In the national accounts project, we have divided the national accounts into 7 different statistical programs, and we have also developed so we can make like sub areas within a statistical program. That's that's how the national accounts need it. So we can go deeper down, more levels down in each statistical program. This is one of the easiest one. And the next one to take a look into is manage business functions, and these are the objects involved, and this is the repository of things that we do and what services we are using to do it. So yeah, this capability has these objects. And then we go to, oh, this one is the big one, and you have heard Katrin and others talking about the green part, but this is like the repository of Statistics Sweden's all the variables and representative variables and code lists and classifications and all that kind of stuff is centralized in this managed metadata. So this is the repository over Statistics Sweden's metadata. And the next one is design statistical program content, which has a very, very close relationship with the managed metadata capability. And we take a look in design statistical program content. We find these GSIM objects that it's responsible for. And the core, I guess what you could say, is data structure component. Okay. And inside design statistical program workflow, we find these objects. And yeah, you can say that an important object here is statistical program design. And in the national accounts, it's quite complicated because they can have one of the statistical programs, which could be 6 of them at the moment. We have each statistical program can have a lot of different designs. For example, for quarters 1, quarters 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. And the different designs is needed because there could be other information sources in the different quarters, and then therefore there are different kind of calculations being done depending on which quarter it is. That's an example. And these capabilities, the process designs, they are a little bit special because they have the same backbone, or they are built around the same backbone in GSIM, and they are these objects in GSIM. So yeah, process design, and this is the ownership. It's just different business services, different business processes. And when we come to the capability where we design collection, we also, of course, design the provision agreement is included here in that capability. And here you can see that the provision agreement is based upon a data structure. So it's yeah, you can imagine the two capabilities communicating there. And here we have the executing capabilities. The one highlighted here is file collection, which takes a provision agreement from design collection, which also has the data structure in it. So the file collection is executing file collecting, and it is done with a process step instance. And down here we have the capability to manage the results or the datasets. I think sometimes it's referred as linked data store or LSD. It's logical statistical data warehouse or something. Our name is at the moment like a dataset catalog. And that one is responsible for these objects. Here is another small takeaway or a finding that we did when we were working in the national accounts, that we have the need to break down process step into a smaller unit. And we did it, and we ended up with a new object called task and a task instance. And they take the same parameter input as a process step, but a task only produces one data set. That is a rule. So a task, it's the process step broken down to a unit of work. And since it produces only one dataset, we can also put on a dataset specification where we can add on attributes on the dataset that it creates at runtime then when a task is executed in a task instance. And this was a major breakthrough in the national accounts when we find it, because there are so many in a certain place in the national accounts. There are so many datasets being produced and created. So we needed a way to break it down. The process step was a little bit too big, so we ended up with task and dataset specification, and this fits in very well in the design tool that we are developing, or the workbench, or what you can say. Okay, this image is going to be really messy, but it summarized that we are combining from our fundamental capabilities or our repositories up there, and we do design that we can give down to the the process design, and then we can give it down to the execution that produces datasets described by metadata from our metadata capability up in the left corner. We also, in order, we can combine our business functions or business services with in order to support a statistical program, and each process design process flow goes down to a specific process design where we continue doing the design, for example attaching VTL code in design process, and we add on contract information in the design collection. We also, I haven't talked about it yet, but we have the managed business functions up there, has a relationship with the managed code and script, and we also supply code and script to our design capabilities. This is also important in the national account system, when that we know how the design in detail looked when we executed it. So we need to be able to find a specific VTL code on a specific task instance, or so down to the executing capability. You can say that we are sending down the information and the parameters needed. Okay, thanks. That was all. And if you have any questions or anything, you can email me at the address here. Okay, thank you. Bye.